Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us here on a very busy day in orbital spaceflight. As we're coming on the air, we are just minutes into the flight of the 50th and final H-2A rocket from Japan, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Corporation. That rocket carrying the Global Observing Satellite for Greenhouse Gases and Water Cycle, abbreviated as GOSAT-GW. So far, everything moving along nominally with that mission, which brings us to the upcoming launch of Starlink 15-7 here in the United States and California specifically. This will be the fourth orbital launch, if all goes well today. So far, 3 for 3 as far as orbital liftoff. The deployment of the GOSAT GW satellite hasn't happened yet, so I'll say we are 2 for 2 as far as payload deployments that have gone as expected. The 2 launches we've had so far. First up, of course, was the launch that we covered this morning for you right here at Spaceflight Now, and that was the launch of the Starlink 10-34 mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, lifting off just after midnight here on the East Coast, 0426 UTC. That was followed up a few hours afterwards by the flight of a Rocket Lab Electron rocket from down in New Zealand with an undisclosed customer. The mission title, Symphony in the Stars, having a good liftoff at 0708 UTC and a nominal deployment of the single satellite on board. Time for this flight from Vandenberg Space Force Base. You see there on your screen, looking at a departure of the Falcon 9 rocket. If all continues to move smoothly with the remainder of the count at 10:13 a.m. Pacific, 1:13 p.m. Eastern, 17:13 UTC for our friends joining around the world. As we're getting things going with our live coverage here, if you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button and sharing the stream. Allows more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage today. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast. The rest of the Spaceflight Now crew, of course, has this mission off, given this is a Vandenberg affair. I want to thank our moderators in the live chat for joining us today and helping us out with management of the live chat here. So thanks to folks like Rick Donner. And just going to see if any of the other mods are here. It might be a Rick Donner solo hour in the live chat. So you can make Rick's job that much easier just by following the rules of the live chat. We ask that you refrain from delving into overt politics and religion in the conversations that you have with each other, that you also hold off from using all caps, that you speak in English or converse in English so that Rick and any of the other mods that join him can understand and respond as appropriately. And last but not least, that you treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated. We also have a wonderful channel member community here on YouTube and make these live launch opportunities possible. So thanks to folks like Cumulus Granatus, the Rocket Girl, Cursing Mom, Grandpa Jim Pondu, Butterfly, and many others. Apologies. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com, access to member-only videos on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. Want to welcome in new channel members, Mary Dahmer and Ron Wolfing, joining us with membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard to the both of you. We're glad to have you with us. Last little bit of housekeeping as we're just under T minus 25 minutes. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings on in the realm of space or spaceflight, or just want to offer some kind words of support today, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature. And not only will you be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. To that end, I want to thank my mother, Mary Robinson, for joining us this morning with a very generous $20 super chat. Saying good morning from Northern California. Good morning, Mom. Hope you're doing well. And hope the rest of you are doing well also. If you haven't already, let us know where you're checking in from here this fine Saturday morning. I see Charlie Parker is hopping in from Conroe, Texas. Just looking at where other people happen to be. A lot of West Coasters, of course. Got Pismo from Pismo Beach, Sybil Durant from Southern California. I've got a few folks from Canada, Kansas, Ohio. Excellent. Always wonderful to see where our global audience is checking in from. Currently 23 minutes, 16 seconds and counting. Taking a look at the weather outlook today, it is a little bit cloudy off the coast of California in the neck of the woods for Vandenberg. Thankfully, as you see with this view of the clouds from the GOES West satellite, the cloud layer is receding from onshore and pulling away. So hopefully by the time we have our eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket there at Space Launch Complex 4 East coming up here in less than 20 minutes, starting around the T-minus 5 minute mark, should have decent visibility on the rocket. As we progress through the count, want to go ahead and walk you through the countdown timeline, the nominal sequence of events that we're expecting with a good countdown to the liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket. We'll speed through the events that we've already passed and get you caught up with what's still ahead. T-minus 38 minutes is when the SpaceX launch director gave their go for the start of prop load. Do note that the go-ahead was given, so fueling began at the T-minus 35 minute mark. SpaceX uses a load and go style of fueling, which was a result of an event that happened actually 10 years ago today. June 28th marks the 10th anniversary of the Commercial Resupply Services, or CRS-7 mission, that in-flight anomaly that resulted in a 6-month stand down for SpaceX and a transformation from the current version of the Falcon 9 rocket at the time to the Block 5 variant that is flying today. Brought in the use of a super cold densified liquid oxygen, which is why SpaceX has the fueling timeline that it does, needing to load that oxidizer as close to liftoff as possible to maintain its temperature. So RP1 loads on board the first and second stages, locks on the first stage. Moving right along, T-minus 30 minutes is when SpaceX begins to load, or began to load in the case of today, a cryogenic helium on board the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage. Same happened on the second stage about 5 minutes ago. That helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes is when the second stage RP-1 tank topped off. The event that we're in the middle of right now is the strong back chill down process. SpaceX thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad ahead of second stage liquid oxygen loading. Had we eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket at this point in the countdown, we would be seeing the so-called big vent as that chill process gets underway. Loading of liquid oxygen on board the second stage will begin at the 16-minute mark. Then at T-minus 7 minutes is when SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps on the Falcon booster's 9 Merlin engines. And that helps protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. T minus 6 minutes is when the first stage kerosene tank is full. And at T minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence get underway. Starts with the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings opening up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back, will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket here at Vandenberg. It stays in that position until liftoff. At that point, it'll actually stay in that position. It doesn't move after that initial recline here at Vandenberg. It's a slightly different style of transporter erector. T minus 3 minutes is when the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. 2 minutes out, second stage LOX load wraps up, and that means the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant at that point. 1 minute out, we'll hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, meaning control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch 45 seconds out. The engine ignition command is issued at T minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, looking at that departure time at 10:13 a.m. Pacific, 1:13 p.m. Eastern, or 17:13 UTC for our friends around the world. As an update to the Japanese H-2A rocket, you have confirmation from MHI that they had a good separation of the GoSat GW satellite. So we are 3 for 3 at this point as far as orbital launches and successful deployments. Now it's all up to the Falcon 9 rocket and the Starlink 15-7 mission to make it a perfect 4 for 4 day here with orbital spaceflight. Falcon 9 first stage booster that is flying today's mission from Vandenberg has the tail number B1088. As it so happens, today will be its 8th flight in its launch history. Far from allowing it to enter into the Falcon 9 Frequent Flyers Club, as you can see, those belong to mission or boosters that are well beyond 20 missions at this point. Still have a 3-way tie for the 5th spot at 21 missions apiece. Have to wait and see when SpaceX is going to decide to break that tie-in with what mission. Here's a look at the bar chart representation of the Falcon family of rockets. 80 missions completed so far on the year, looking for number 81 coming up here in just about 16 minutes. And as we reach that 16-minute mark, SpaceX will begin loading a liquid oxygen aboard the Falcon 9's second stage. Time now T minus 14 minutes, 36 seconds and counting. I want to thank the more than 1,700 of you who are watching with us live this morning. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button and sharing the stream. Allows more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage this morning. Taking a quick peek at our live chat here. See channel member Meg McElroy, now been with us for 9 months at the pad leader level, saying hello to Sulfur for Lunch. Chuck Close, another one of our channel members with a very generous $25 super chat. Really appreciate that, Chuck. Good to see you again this afternoon. Our thanks to Stephen Fraser, another channel member, gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships and growing our community here on YouTube. So to our newest gifted channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Stephen in the chat. And we hope you decide to stick around with membership beyond the month you were just gifted. Last for now, certainly not least, our thanks to Ian Lita for a $5 super chat. Good to see you again, Lita, who says, please know that you are all much appreciated. Well, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for your support of what we do here at Spaceflight Now. Taking a look at where this Falcon 9 rocket's going to be flying once it does leave the pad in just a little more than 13 minutes. Starlink 15-7 mission will make its departure from Space Launch Complex 4 East there at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Rocket will fly in a southeasterly trajectory going along the coasts of California and Mexico. The first stage booster, B-1088, targeting a touchdown on the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. If SpaceX is successful with this booster landing, it will mark the 139th touchdown on that particular vessel and the 470th good booster landing to date. SpaceX is working to certify its first stage boosters for up to 40 missions at this point in time. Same with the payload fairings, which will be deployed a little bit after booster or stage separation, and the booster begins to make its way towards the drone ship. After they come back through the atmosphere, the fairing halves will make their final trek down to the waters of the Pacific Ocean under the support of steerable parachutes. Once down in the water, they will be brought aboard one of these recovery vessels and then brought back into port, where SpaceX will examine them, refurbish them, turn them around for future flights. So far as we know, the flight leader for the fairing halves is one that has flown 30 times to date. Though SpaceX doesn't often talk about its fairing recovery program, so we don't have a lot of really good current stats, unfortunately. Just about 10 minutes out now. Take a beat to talk about the payload on board today's Falcon 9 rocket launch. 26 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites are on board this rocket. Taking a look at a picture of a previous batch of those V2 Mini optimized satellites. Today's launch will be the 60th with Starlink satellites as the primary payload, the 59th dedicated Starlink mission, with the Starlink 13-1 flight having carried a pair of Starshield satellites. As you can see with the difference in weight of the optimized version versus the previous type of V2 Mini satellite that has been flown in the past, considerably lighter. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering. Built up in Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle. These will be deployed at about 183 miles or 295 kilometers altitude at a 53-degree inclination. Now just under 10 minutes to the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. 9.5 minutes remaining on the clock. Mentioned that this first stage booster B1088 is going to be making its eighth flight today. B1088 is interesting because it has had the fastest turnaround time marked for any Falcon 9 booster flying on either coast. Today won't be its fastest turnaround. That was back following the launch of NASA's SphereX and Punch satellites in between that mission and NROL 57, in which there was just a 9-day turnaround, made possible in part because those were back to back touchdowns at landing zone 4. So you didn't have the return on a drone ship and have to account for a greater impact from the salt water on the trip as well. A little bit of a more stable landing, of course, when you touch down back on land versus on the drone ship. Taking a look back in the history of this booster, though, let's walk through where we've been and where we're about to go. Its first flight was the NROL 126 mission, a combination of 20 Starlink satellites and a couple of Starshield satellites lifting off on November 30th of 2024. That was followed up by the Transporter 12 rideshare mission lifting off on January 14th of this year. Next up was the aforementioned SphereX Punch combo mission for NASA, and another flight for the National Reconnaissance Office, NROL 57. And then we're off to Starlink land here. We had Starlink 11-13 on April 4th, 15-4 on May 13th, and 15-8 is the most recent flight on June 8th. Coming up now to 20 days later, where we're about to see the liftoff of Starlink 15-7. Worth highlighting these turnaround times for SpaceX. While the company hasn't explicitly talked about it, there may be some performance improvements that are unique to this particular Falcon booster that have allowed it to return to the pad with greater expediency than we've seen with some of SpaceX's other Falcon boosters. Again, though, there are some key differences to consider when talking about the turnaround time. As you mentioned earlier, the fact that you had a mission that landed back at landing zone 4 twice, or rather 3 times. Transporter 12, the SphereX mission, and NROL 57 all had LZ4 touchdowns, which certainly makes turnaround faster since you also cut out the transit time from the landing zone area out in the Pacific Ocean and getting back to port with the booster, offloading, transporting to SpaceX facilities. All that is eliminated, obviously, when you have a landing zone landing. T-minus 6 minutes and counting. Closing in on the final moments of our countdown today. So far, all appears to be moving smoothly with SpaceX and the fueling of its Falcon 9 rocket. At this point, the first stage kerosene tanks should be full, and we should also be getting some pad level views and mission audio from SpaceX coming up here in about 30 seconds or so.
Tanks are pressing for strongback retract.
As you just heard, SpaceX is preparing for the retraction of the strongback or the transporter erector. Unfortunately, the clouds are still hanging around Vandenberg at this point. Quite a bit of fog there as well.
Strong back lower has started.
Given the amount of fog here, it's hard to see the strongback retract, but you can just barely make out the strongback on the right third of your screen. If you look near the bottom, just a little bit darker there. Fortunately, this is not a great view of the Falcon 9 rocket. You can really barely even
Stage
make it
1,
out.
LOX load is complete.
But the good news is the visuals are not as important to the mission as the fact that fueling continues to move smoothly. As just heard, stage 1 liquid oxygen loading has concluded. Coming up, we'll hear a similar call on the second stage LOX tank. That'll be just about a hair past the 2-minute mark.
Stage 2, LOX load is complete.
With that good call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. It's going to be nearly impossible to see,
Ground
but
gas
we should
closeouts.
be coming up on the ground gas closeouts. So SpaceX, that venting that you're hearing now is the release of the remaining liquid oxygen in the feed lines. Actually, they got a good view of it right there. That's the extra bit of cloud cover you're seeing there on the right-hand side of your screen. That is the venting liquid returning to gaseous oxygen.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And with that call, we're just waiting for the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch. Coming up here in the next few seconds.
LD is go for launch.
And with that, we're going to step back on our commentary, listen along with you for the final 30 seconds of the count, and we'll be back with you on the other side of liftoff.
T minus 3 seconds. T minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Now a little more than a minute into this flight,
Max
we're
Q.
just passing through max Q now, actually. Point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. The rocket will be throttling up now past max Q and preparing to thermally condition the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage ahead of its first burn. Really nice view of the curvature of the Earth there on the left-hand side of your screen as the rocket pulls away from the California coastline.
MVAC chill.
Good call for that MVAC chill, again, regarding the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Coming upon a few events in fairly rapid succession, we'll see first stage main engine cutoff, otherwise referred to as a MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 24 seconds into the flight. That'll be followed by stage separation, and then the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. The payload fairings at the top of the rocket will be deployed just before the 3-minute mark.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
All good calls, good visuals as well from the Falcon 9's onboard cameras. There you can see the deployment of those hypersonic grid fins as we come up to fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Beautiful view of those Starlink satellites. 26 in total. See that fairing half falling back to Earth. Once it's back through the atmosphere, it will make its final splashdown under the support of steerable parachutes. Looks like some folks in California got a decent view of the launch. Others got fogged out. Too bright to see in Long Beach. Good view from Lompoc, California. Pismo Beach got some good views. Good to hear. Coming up on the 4th minute into flight, the next big milestone in this mission will be the first stage entry burn, which will use 3 out of the 9 Merlin engines to begin to dramatically slow that vehicle down. It looks like the booster has reached its apogee today, topping out at 119 kilometers in altitude, now making its descent towards the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. If successful, a good touchdown on that drone ship would mark
Both
the
vehicles
100.
are following a nominal trajectory.
Good confirmation of nominal trajectories for both the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket. If the booster has a good touchdown, that'll be the 139th for that particular drone ship. It will also be the 380th good drone ship landing for SpaceX to date. Looking out through the interstage there on the left-hand side of your screen. Coming up on the 6th minute in flight, the first stage entry burn set to begin at about T plus 6 minutes and 6 seconds, lasting a little less than 30 seconds in total.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FGS has saved.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
With the conclusion of the entry burn, coming upon the landing burn next. That other call was regarding the flight termination system, referred to there as the FTS on the booster. No longer needed at this stage in flight. It's a safety mechanism on board both stages of the Falcon 9 rocket, employed in the case of an off-nominal scenario to have a controlled detonation of the rocket if necessary. We're about 30 seconds to the start of the landing burn. Again, this will use just one of the engines on the Falcon booster, the center engine, to cushion a hopefully soft landing for the rocket. Booster now traveling
Stage
below
2
the
FGS has saved.
speed of sound.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And a good touchdown of B-1088, concluding its 8th trip to space and back.
In back shutdown.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And with a good confirmation of a MVAC shutdown combined with a nominal orbit insertion, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 will continue to coast now until T plus 52 minutes and 36 seconds. There will be a brief 2-second burn on the upper stage engine to circularize its orbit and allow the Starlink satellites to be deployed at T plus 1 hour, 1 minute, and 30 seconds post liftoff. With a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster, let's turn now to our mission stats as they currently stand. Do want to let folks know before we begin these that we've got our next launch from here in Florida coming up on July 1st. Actually, our next couple of launches coming up on July 1st, starting with another painfully early Starlink mission lifting off from Space Launch Complex 40. That is the Starlink 10-25 flight with a window opening up at 1:52 a.m. Eastern, 05:52 UTC. And that'll be followed by a mission lifting off from Launch Complex 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center. That is the Meteosat third generation Sounder 1 or MTGS-1 spacecraft heading up to geostationary Earth orbit. We actually saw the satellite nestled in the payload fairings roll by the VAB last night. Or, no, that was early this morning. It's all blending together. But we did see it heading out to the pad, so we know that SpaceX and EUMETSAT are busily preparing for that mission. So we'll, of course, have live launch coverage of both flights beginning an hour before liftoff. So be sure to subscribe here to the channel at Spaceflight Now. Turn on notifications so that you don't miss out when we start our live coverage. As promised with the mission stats, this was the 8th good flight of Falcon 9 first stage booster B1088. This was SpaceX's 498th Falcon 9 launch to date, which means if all goes according to plan, the 500th Falcon 9 launch is coming up on July 1st with the launch of that MTG-S1 satellite. Big moment for SpaceX. This was the 81st Falcon 9 launch of the year, the 149th orbital flight within the last 365 days. Apologies. This was the 134th orbital launch for SpaceX from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 202nd overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Taking a look at the bar chart representation for SpaceX of the 81st launch of the year. Close to catching up for the total number of missions launched in all of 2023. SpaceX hoping to reach 170 by year's end. Moving on with some recovery stats, the touchdown at B1088 on the Falcon 9, or on the drone ship, of course, I still love you. 139th good landing for that vessel, marking the 380th SpaceX drone ship landing and the 470th Falcon booster landing to date as well. Finally, with some industry stats, a lot of movement on this since the last time we spoke with you. There were 2 orbital flights. This was the 29th orbital launch from California. This was the 86th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 96th from a U.S. rocket company, and the 144th orbital launch around the world. 3 launch mishaps still on the year. Here is where our pie chart now currently stands. I want to give some of the final words to folks in the live chat who've been supporting us throughout the course of this launch coverage. Our thanks to Anita Brockins for a $2 super chat. Thank you, Anita. Really appreciate the support today. Deb with a $5 super chat, one of our wonderful channel members, who says, thanks for the fun, spaceflight now. Thank you, Deb, for supporting the fun. And Jim Edgar with a generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Jim, who says, Jim Edgar, Lisa Bean, enjoyed this launch very much. For the cats, Kip, Lola, and Miko. Thank you, Will. Thanks, Jim. And thank you for your time and attention this morning, and to our moderator, Jeff Hansen, for helping us out alongside Rick Donner in the live chat. Thanks also to Cumulus Granatus for answering folks' questions as Rick and Jeff helped do their moderator duties. Our thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, who's been running the technical operations of the broadcast. Most of all, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from, whether in California or elsewhere around the world. We appreciate your time and attention, and we look forward to welcoming you back here at Spaceflight Now when next a launch comes around. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.